Alright, so I mentioned how there is a new build for Slark, a new item build that is running through the meta and becoming more and more popular, and so I wanted to look at a game where SCCC, second place at TI7 if I'm not mistaken, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but he plays Slark, he uses the new item build, and I think it's going to be a good analysis for anyone trying to play Slark or just look into a new build to test out. Also, if you enjoyed yesterday's episode where I sort of talked about item builds, and that's the reason why I made this video, and you even like the sequence where I sort of talk about item builds and then, get into a hero and actually look at them like I'll be doing for Slark here today, like the video. Helps me know if you want to see this sort of format where I talk about builds and then give you things to experiment on, because I personally think that's the best thing about Dota, or one of the best things about Dota, just the ability to experiment with all these builds and the endless options. It's why I've played for, I think, 6 years now, and have not got bored. Also, hopefully you guys enjoyed the minor just as much as I did. I've been watching a lot lately, and one thing I want to say is that I'm going to be looking over the grand finals and making 2 replay analysis to the heroes for the main gameleap website. So if you're interested in learning about those teams, right, even just kind of watching Nigma, because I'm going to be following their perspectives and learning about what they do, why they do it, how they do it, and how you can put it into your own games, go check it out, sign up, and I'll see you there. First things first, I think this is the new wave of item builds for carries. I'm a huge fan of the starting item for basically any, literally any melee hero. This item build is just clean. Reason being that it gives you overall stats, plenty of regen, and a quelling blade. The first thing you want to know about Slark is when to actually hit people. Most players get this wrong all the time, and therefore when I watch a lot of low MMR Slarks, they end the laning stage with 30 CS. So how do you get all the CS and harass your opponent at the same time, right? Because you want to go aggressive as Slark, you have essence shift, right? Well, what you need to do and what you need to understand is every single time you get a last hit, typically you can hit them after it. Why is this, right? Every single time you can get a last hit, you can hit it. What does that mean? Why does that make sense? Well, reason being is you do not have another last hit to get. Are there situations where there's going to be 2 in a row? Of course, but usually not in the early laning stage, right? So he gets the last hit, and he's like, yoink, yoink, it takes a stat, right? That's all you need to consider about Slark. In between last hits, and when they are going for last hits, right? When your opponent is going for last hits, you want to try to hit them. That's the best way to punish people. The next thing I want to mention about trading that is going to help literally everyone trying to get better at trading in their laning stage and being more efficient. Avoid at all costs severely overextending past the creep wave, right? Do not severely extend past the creep wave, okay? He has a severe creep advantage right now, which is going to allow him to trade effectively. But you notice the only reason why he can go for the Timber hit right here is because Timber's trying to static the wave from the tower, and he's not extending past a major creep wave, right? Simply because there is no creep wave. But then once again, he can get another hit in only because he is, I shouldn't say parallel, but he's behind the first creep of the wave. This is a great way to look at it, because what players don't realize is that a lot of them will take 300 to 400 creep damage within a laning stage and have no clue of it. And really just when he hits this Earthshaker here, I think it proves the point, right? This Earthshaker is like a rank 4 player, but you have to understand it's not like he's invincible if you were to play against him. What you need to look for is when the Shaker goes past the creep wave and is in potential range of the range creeps auto-attacking him, right? So if they trade right here, what happens? Shaker will start taking 30 to 40 damage per set of auto attacks from the range creeps, right? Obviously depending on stout shield blocks. And that's kind of all you need to know, right? That's when he turns. And it's so smart, it's so effective, and that's literally it. You just have to be able to do that and recognize it over and over again. If you ever feel like you can go aggressive in your lane, your first item should almost always be an Overvenom. It is just so key on Slark because you do not want to pounce early in the laning stage. It's really, really bad to pounce early in the laning stage because it essentially means you're going to be diving either a tower or into a creep wave, or you can't disengage, which is typically a problem for Slark. So I just recommend buying Oof so you can avoid having to pounce all the time. In terms of items, I'm going to give you 2 different routes here. If you feel like your lane is not perfect, it is a bit difficult, right? It is a tad difficult. You want to be rushing Magic Wand, right? You really, really want to be rushing Magic Wand because it is one of those items that is going to allow you to sustain. On top of that, you want Wraith Bands, right? So what does he rush, right? He gets a Magic Wand and a Wraith Band because he understands that the Timber and the Earthshaker are going to cast a fair amount of spells and they can deal with him, right? But if it's the absolute freest lane, let's say it's a 2v1 and it's some like, I don't know, Dazzle Slark against Underlord, you probably can just rush Treads because it is going to give you a significant amount of kill potential on your opponent. But as we'll see here, the biggest part that I love about a good Slark player is that they do not constantly chase when they are ahead. He is clearly stronger than this Timbersaw right now. Look at the CS difference. Obviously, he's going to be stronger just of nature of items, and of course, Slark is good against melee heroes when he's level 3, right? Once he hits level 3. However, he stays back and just denies creeps. That is it, right? He doesn't go past the wave. He isn't just, diving all the time. He's getting every single last hit, going for every single deny that he can, and this is how you actually win the lane. People think it's by, crushing people and just constantly zoning them out and harassing them. That's not the case. It's about harassing, backing up, denying. Harassing, backing up, denying. In terms of skill and item build, this is going to be what I recommend every single game. There are some other builds where you max out Essence Shift and you simply play around the idea that you can just steal stats from people and then steal more stats and then steal more stats. But usually that kind of limits your farming a little bit, and it's only effective if you can do this and constantly zone someone out. So let's say you're playing against some jug. You can TP to his lane, you can, especially if you have a level advantage, you can TP to his lane with your treads and max Essence Shift, and you can just literally ruin his game. So that can work, but a lot of the time that's hard to judge. So I recommend you go this, you start with 2 points on Essence at level 3, right? Unless, of course, it's a hero like Bat Rider that you need to purge from. And then you max out the Dark Pact afterwards. It's just going to allow you to farm, it lowers the cooldown, and overall it's just kind of the safest build in my opinion. Briefly here, I want to show one of my favorite rotations of the entire game. This game ends very quickly, but I think it's a good example of just how to snowball with Slark. So he picks up his Blade of Alacrity, bottom wave gets pushed in. As we look at the minimap, right, there's no creeps for him to farm. And what that means is he can potentially look to either TP top, but Drow is very far back, her tier 1's already dead, so he could run at her and it would be an alright play, but she could just back fairly easily. So instead what he does is he sees his team fighting mid, he knows they're ahead, and therefore he can run at the enemy team with him, right? He even just farms a camp casually. He's like, yeah, I'm playing for efficiency. Timbersaw gets caught out, easy kill, into a mid tower. That's such a good gank. This one happened a lot in low MMR pubs where your entire team collapses on mid. Often it will be this like Mexican standoff where both teams are like, oh, who's gonna go first? And one team stands on their own hill and your team stands on their hill and you're just waiting and nothing really happens. This is a high MMR thing. So if you see it happening where your team is like hardcore diving and your Slark, you can kite in and out very effectively. But 9 times out of 10, what I recommend you do is you focus on pushing in your lane, focus on your own CS, and then primarily what you want to do is identify who you can zone out. So let's say there's a jug, you're good against jug. Drow, you can zone out a drow pretty effectively if you play it correctly. You can go run at them, and that's a great way to just do well. But yeah, all things aside, don't constantly run at people, right? Even though his team is still fighting, I just love that he doesn't, continuously fight. Can you do it? Yes, right? Like we can look at OG and sometimes it'll feel like they'll fight for 8 minutes straight. But very often what you won't see is Ana pushing in a creep wave here and there, or Thompson pushing in a creep wave here and there. And I'm not saying jungle, right? That's the clear thing I want to say here. Slark is not much of a jungler. You can kill a small camp, you can kill a medium camp here and there. In your downtime, if you shoved a wave, you can kill a large camp. But for the most part, right, after the mid wave goes down, he identifies that there's no one in the top lane, so he simply runs there and he's probably going to push it out as far as he can, right? And that's exactly what he sees. He pushes out the wave, he kills the large camp, kills the small camp, back to the wave, kicks the shaker out of the lane briefly, back to the camp, right? And this is sort of the farming pattern you want to be taking if you're trying to just straight up gain MMR, in my opinion. It's like, how do you farm fast is the question I would always ask. How do you get to your item timing faster is the question I like to ask if I'm trying to gain MMR. And that's what we see here, right? He's sort of just playing with his team, but it aligns with this farming pattern. You notice how when he just ran at the enemy team there, it literally aligned with the creep camp he was killing. That is the sign that you're becoming better and better. If you were hitting a camp and then quickly just show up to a fight, I just think that's the best way to look at like, oh, I'm being efficient. So next up, I actually just want to look at a mistake of his, just because I think it's, it can be very useful to learn from people's mistakes so you can avoid them in your own game. So what we're going to see here is he's trying to apply a lot of pressure. He feels basically invincible right now, and he sees this Timbersaw. First thing to note is he doesn't instantly pounce. He understands the only time he has to pounce to track down this Timber is after the Diffusal runs out, or when Timber is going to go for a Timber chain, right? Because you can't Timber chain if you're pounced. That's just how that matchup works. He's sort of waiting for maybe the animation to come out. He sees it, right? He goes for it, but it was a little bit late because technically, which maybe he didn't know at the time. In fact, I was even a little bit shocked of this when I learned this quite a long time ago. Because the Timber chain already came out, it didn't work. And now he gets silenced, even though he gets Chakra Magic, he couldn't, he couldn't get off his ulti or his Dark Pact, and therefore he dies. So, tough little situation, but hopefully that makes sense where it's like, you always want to be paying attention to the people around you and don't be afraid to commit ult early, only if you're in a very dangerous position where you're on the front line, right? Slark wants to be kiting around the edges and killing people on the edges, not being the first person to go in. That typically just does not work out. And that is the exact reason why I want to make this video, to show you that he's going to be buying an AGH'S next. If you don't know what AGH'S does, I'll read it off to you briefly. What it does is it gives you 2 charges and it increases the pounce range. That's all it does. And you might be like, well, speed, that sounds absolute garbage. It doesn't give you any damage, no attack speed. Well, I mean, I guess the item gives you attack speed just because it's built from a Blade of Alacrity. But the thing is, this allows you to kite in and out, which is what Slark wants to do. It enables the playstyle that Slark wants to have. Because when you only have 1 pounce, it actually, players that aren't very high Mars, they'll just commit pounce willy-nilly in fights, and they end up dying because of it 9 out of 10 times, and it's hard for people to see. But the thing about the AGH'S is you can be significantly more reckless with your pounces, and you can get in and out so effectively, because if you get out with the pounce, you're immediately going to start regenning, where with the other pounce, because it's not that fast and far, you won't regen right away and people can often track you down. And a final thing to note before we get into just looking at some of the AGH'S play is when you're going on people, guys, right, he pounced over first off, but you want to often lead with Diffusal. I see people just like lead with pounce when they have Diffusal. It makes me want to blow my brains out. You just slow them, right? Slow them. You know, like, I don't get what's so complex about this. Just slow them. It guarantees the pounce. Get a couple autos in, and when they can disengage, or if they're, you know, I guess if they're a hero that can disengage, then go for the pounce, right? If they're an any-mage or Quap or Ember or Storm, yes, you might need to lead with the pounce, okay? That can happen, but for most heroes that do not have an immediate disengage, you want to, you know, Diffusal, Dark Pact to get the Dark Pact going off cooldown, and then pounce when they're going to disengage, or even pounce away. And yeah, just a lot more farming. I see people when they play Slark, they stop farming, and it's GG's, so I just like that he's farming. I just want to keep mentioning this because it's like my main thesis on Dota right now that prevents people from going up in MMR. It's like, they get ahead, they feel like they're ahead, and they keep fighting. They're just going to fight. No, if you're trying to gain MMR and you feel like you're ahead, what you want to do is slow down the pace of the game and continue to farm. You want to push in waves, right? Because then you pick off someone like the Drow in the side lane. That's an effective kill because he can continue farming after it. Most people's kills don't lead to much because they get a kill and then they're in the same lane as their Juggernaut who needs to take all the farm and they get absolutely nothing. That's not how you want to snowball. You want to snowball by getting things like pickoffs, especially if you're a hero like Slark, Ursa, Storm Spirit, Ember Spirit, right? All these heroes love this sort of playstyle, and frankly, many heroes can do this. And now we're going to see the power of the AGH'S and how it just lets you play reckless. So he sees this Elder Titan over here and he's like, yeet. Somehow that hits him. I don't know. That was absolutely insane. Great pounce. And then he commits the Dark Pact just because he didn't want to get bursted in this fight. Tries to kite out. Sees that the Timbersaw is overcommitted and that the enemy team is backing up, so he can decide to hit him. Goes for the Dark Pact to prevent getting RP'd. And then goes for another pounce, right? At the same time now, if he needs to, he can pounce out. He doesn't because the enemy team has used the majority of the disables, and he's able to calculate that because he's played so much Dota, right? Once again, in, out, right? Team disengaging, you pounce out. But still, he has the option to go back in. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they go back in the next 2 seconds here, because that's the power of the AGH'S. You can, right? So he sees the Elder Titan, he yeet, right? If you do this with Slark and you don't have pounce, any good player is going to be like, oh, Slark used pounce, let's kill him. But with AGH'S, that's just not the case. Tracks him down, another one. I mean, you literally can't run away. You actually can't run away. Oh, no way. Does he get a rampage? Give it to him, baby. Yeah, baby. I didn't even know that happened. And woo! Oh, this build is so clean. It just lets you track everyone down. You get really tanky. And Diffusal is just like such a good damage item, right? It's such a good damage item. A slow for Slark is absolutely incredible, and 20 AGI is very high. Even the mana burn is actually very useful on Slark. You'll be surprised how much it comes in handy against a lot of the heroes they can actually struggle to kill, such as Embers and Storms. But yeah, just fantastic gameplay from CCNC. I'm a huge fan of this build right now. That's why I want to make a video on it and bring it to y'all. I think it's much better than the Shadowblade builds, the Echo Saber builds, and, you know, just because those are a bit limited. But yeah, remember that a lot of this comes down to the playstyle, so if you aren't very comfortable on the playstyle of, you know, getting in lanes and showing up the quick fights, right? You notice how he never fought for a very long period of time. It's the quick fights and the quick farm. That's what I love about this hero and this playstyle. It's like, people ask me, how do I farm and fight? My team tilts. Well, it's very difficult. That's why it can be hard, or many people don't even think you can do it. It's like you have to pick one or the other. No, you could do both if you're efficient enough and you're very calculated about where you're farming. And that's gonna be all for the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, please don't like and subscribe to help our channel grow. And of course, I'll see you in the next one. Are you tired of being hard stuck at your rank? Over at gameleap.com, we have a library of hundreds of guides authored by pro players and coaches covering literally every aspect of Dota. Whether you're looking to master a new hero or role, or just polish up your existing skills, GameLeap is the proven place for competitive gamers to hone their craft and unlock their secret potential. Hit the link on screen right now, to take advantage of our special offer for a 25% discount, guys, 25%, and start your journey today.